Welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Tonight's guest is a very good friend of mine. He is the co-host of the Sports Dudes podcast. James Celestin, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Madison. How you doing?
I'm good. So, the return of sports is looking very, very optimistic right now. Wouldn't you say so?
I definitely feel the same way. I mean, a month ago, I felt pessimistic, and now I'm feeling more optimistic now.
Yes, I was a little bit pessimistic a month ago, but now I feel much better. I'm totally with you. So, out of the NBA, the NHL, or Major League Baseball, which one do you think will return first and make a case for it?
Wow. I'm torn between the NBA and the NHL, and I'm probably going to say the NBA for this reason. Adam Silver, he is the best commissioner in sports. And I think that with the players being on board, the players are more unified in the NBA. Similar with the NHL, but just something with Gary Bettman, it's hard for me to trust him. And baseball just can't seem to get out of their own way with people like Blake Snell and Bryce Harper complaining about reduced pay. The NBA gets it. And the players led by LeBron James and Stephen Curry and all the superstars in the NBA, they get it. They know what sports means to this country. They know that in times of hard luck, during these terrible times, they know that sports can galvanize and unify a lot of people. And the NBA, they're more unified into wanting to finish out their season as opposed to arguing about money. And they have agreed to go revisit the CBA until September. So I'm more confident that the NBA can get it together as opposed to the other two major sports.
I believe the NBA will be back first as well, but I don't feel good about it per se. But like you said, Adam Silver knows what he's doing. The reason why I'm a little pessimistic, despite the complaining from Bryce Harper and Blake Snell, Rob Manfred on CNN said that they have the tests ready, and the NBA also has the tests ready as well. And they pretty much learned from Dana White last weekend when they had a positive test and they just kept going, and that turned out to be very good, that event that Dana White held, the UFC 249 last weekend. So I think that they learned from Dana White, and I'm really confident, especially with the NBA, that this is going to work out. And in hockey, I think that will come back to Gary Bettman's very optimistic, even though you know how I feel about Gary Bettman. But I do think the NHL will be back as well. How about college football and college hoops? Are you optimistic that those two respective things will start on time, especially college football, because that's obviously closer?
Believe it or not, I'm more optimistic about college football than I am college basketball. And I only say this because the Power 5 conference, you know as well as I do, and the NCAA football is driven by the Power 5 commissioners. And the Power 5 commissioners are going to make it deem that football return. They're likely are going to return. Spirited by what I believe is the best conference in all of the NCAA, which is the SEC. And the SEC is going to spearhead this, that I really believe that they're going to come back at some point. You already heard talks about the SEC opening up its facilities as soon as next week. I know there's some chatter about Lincoln Riley saying that's ridiculous, but I understand why it sounds that way, but I truly believe that the NCAA football terms are going to come back as opposed to the NCAA basketball. And I say that because of what I heard from Big East commissioners saying that if students are not coming out, they're not going to play. And that kind of drew me a little bit more pessimistic about hoops. But I'm more confident in football primarily because the Power 5 holds a lot of weight. And you ain't going to have a football season without the Power 5. Let's put it out. Let's put it out there. There is no college football season without the Power 5 schools coming in. So I'm more optimistic about football. We're coming back in the NCAA as opposed to basketball.
For me, I'd say it's even, and I think both sports will come back. I think the Big East will figure it out. I see why the Big East is pessimistic because a lot of their schools are in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York, and obviously those are very coronavirus-heavy states. And although things are heading in the right direction in all those states, so maybe the Big East will change its mind once things are better. But you made a great point on college football and all the Power 5 conferences. I was a little pessimistic when Colin Cowherd came out with that report, but the Pac-12 came out and denied it right away. And we know Colin Cowherd is not a good reporter. He incorrectly reported that Kevin Durant to the Knicks was a done deal, so I never trust Colin Cowherd anymore, especially after getting that wrong. And you know how I felt about that. And so I really do think that both football and basketball in college sports will come back. The NFL, I think that will start on time as well. How about you?
I think the NFL is going to start on time, especially with the fact that they have the luxury and the benefit of having this happen during its off season. The fact that they had their virtual draft, which was a big success for them, and the simple fact that their facilities are going to probably start to open as soon as by the end of this month, because they extended it until about the 29th or the 30th, I believe. So I think facilities are going to start to reopen by the end of May. So I think that the NFL has the luxury of time on its side. And I actually just got the report from ESPN. Teams must set the protocols to reopen their facilities on the same local regulations by next week. Just got that update right now. So I'm more optimistic now that the NFL will start on time, and I do believe that it will be limited fans. I don't believe it's going to be sellout. I think it's probably anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 fans for this season, and I think next season, I think you'll see regular fans show up.
I agree. I think the first time you'll see like regular fans full capacity potentially, and it's only because of how big this is, the Super Bowl. I think there's a chance you'll see it for the Super Bowl because it'll be in 2021 by then, and hopefully things are calmer by then in terms of less cases and a vaccine and all that. The NFL offseason was interesting, and it got sports fans talking and having conversations during this pandemic. And that's credit to Roger Goodell for keeping going and keeping fans happy by allowing teams to make moves in free agency. And you know how I feel about Roger Goodell as well, but I got to give credit where credit's due. The biggest story in the NFL this year, Tom Brady's no longer on the Patriots. He is on the Bucs, and his ex-teammate and now new teammate again, Rob Gronkowski, has joined them. Do you think the Buccaneers are a Super Bowl contender?
With the offensive weapons they have, it's hard to argue how they're not a Super Bowl contending team. The key is protecting Brady, because Brady has gained all this criticism saying that he's old and he's washed, it's over. Brady's not the same player. And obviously, you're not going to be the same player as you were when you're 24, and now the man's going to be 43 this year. But I think this year, with the weapons they have led by Brady, they did a good job in the draft. They addressed the offensive line. The defense should be improved. I mean, you're replacing Jameis Winston, who was a turnover machine, with arguably the best quarterback to ever do it. Even at his advanced age, he's still the best quarterback to ever do it. And I think in the NFC, I'll correct myself, and I really think that they have a chance to be a Super Bowl contending team. Getting to the Super Bowl, that's a different story, but I think has to be one of the favorites with the offseason they had, the draft they have. They have to be one of the favorites to represent the NFC.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I think they have a great chance to be the first team in NFL history to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium, because don't forget the Super Bowl is in Tampa next February, so that's a little bit of a fun scenario storyline to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Now here we are, second part of the Madison Miller podcast with James Celestin. The quick hit segment. You do a similar segment on your show where you ask your guests a random set of questions on variety number of topics. We'll start with Aaron Judge's rib injury. Do you think that if the season were to start by the rumored July 4th weekend date, do you think he'll be back or it'll be a couple weeks?
I say a couple of weeks, only because it's hard to trust the medical staff of the Yankees at this point. So I give it about a couple of weeks after.
Me too. I'm going to say he's back by like July 17th if the season were to start July 4th weekend. And if the season does start July 4th weekend, I have to give myself credit because I called it up about a month ago. I said the baseball season would be back for the 4th of July. And that was a very, very good prediction by me if that proves to be true. And if it's before that, then wow too. So yeah, 4th of July was my prediction. I'm sticking with it because I think it's only fitting that baseball is its opening day on one of the best holidays of the year, despite a lot of people and states not celebrating it the right way this year for obvious reasons. The Last Dance. What was your favorite episode thus far?
Episode 5, especially how Kobe illustrated how they would everything he got from you see from Kobe, you get from Jordan. That one, as hard as it is to fathom that Kobe's not here, the fact that him and Jordan had a brotherhood, and it always go back to this old motto: different animal, same beast. What you get from Kobe is what you get from Jordan. There would be no Kobe if it wasn't for Jordan.
Absolutely. That was a good one. I'd say that was my favorite episode, but my favorite moment, I was absolutely dying over the Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman Vegas scene. That was fantastic. I was cracking up. So that's my pick for the best moment, but the best episode, certainly the Kobe episode, which was obviously, like you said, episode 5. It's going to be a sad day on Sunday. It's going to be the last 2 episodes.
It is. It's going to be, you know what it is? I call it bittersweet. And I say it because it's going to be tough to know that it's the last episode of the series. Bittersweet to know that it served its purpose as to show just what type of player Michael Jordan was in his heyday with the Chicago Bulls. And with sports slowly returning, as we discussed in part 1, with the UFC, with NASCAR, and now golf, at least we can say that we had something to hold us over, get people talking until we can get a sense of normalcy of sports and this country going back on its feet.
Absolutely, and good job by ESPN by moving this up to April, or else it had not been for the pandemic, this would have been after the NBA Finals in June. So only because of the pandemic, they rightfully moved it up to get fans excited, and it really was a quick 5 weeks during this quarantine of The Last Dance. And I always said the 2 hours of the 2 episodes of The Last Dance were always the quickest times of the quarantine. And I honestly think that couldn't be more true.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, all right. The New York Knicks are our favorite basketball team, and they're obviously been searching for a star, whether it's via trade or free agency. And let's say the most likely outcome, which is the outcome I prefer, is to trade for somebody, because that really what puts you in a position to sign star players. I mean, the Lakers obviously signed LeBron James and trade for Anthony Davis, so let's exclude them. So that's normally been the case a lot. We saw that with the Celtics when they went on that run in 2007, 2008. They trade for stars, and then they got more stars to join Paul Pierce. So, for the Knicks' sake, who's the star you'd like to see them trade for that is a realistic opportunity to be traded?
I see 3 guys. The first guy I could probably see is Victor Oladipo. I think him is more realistic. I could see that. The other guy, I am against this. I'm still against this. But if they trade for him, so be it. Chris Paul, for this reason only. What he's done with OKC, with helping mentoring Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he could come with the Knicks, even though he comes with a hefty price. He could instantly change the culture and how people perceive the Knicks.
Absolutely.
And the third guy, which I think is a realistic realistic, and I'm scouring the league. Another guy that I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but I could see one of 2 guys getting traded. either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons. And before you call me crazy, at some point, Sixers are going to have to make a decision. And I say that because they're torn between Simmons and Embiid. Embiid and Simmons both have not stayed healthy, but obviously there's something with that chemistry that's just not there. There's something that I just can't see why those two young stars, they just don't seem to work together, especially when Simmons can't shoot and Embiid takes up all the space. So I think one of those two is going to likely get traded. And I think if I'm the Knicks, and with all the draft equity you have, that's the situation I would monitor.
Yes, that's a good call with the Sixers. I wasn't even thinking about them. But I don't know if they trade with the Knicks because they're in the same division. But you never know. Boston and Brooklyn did the Garnett-Pierce trade back in 2013, and Danny Ainge didn't give a crap and dealt those two guys to Brooklyn back in 2013. But if you ask me if I wanted Embiid or Simmons, I'd take Simmons, even though he's not a good shooter. He's a very good passer. He's great in the paint. And it's funny because I think R.J. Barrett can become like a mini version of Ben Simmons. But like those two guys together, I think would be interesting. Although I think that's unrealistic. The guy I want them to trade for that's very realistic, you mentioned his name right away, Victor Oladipo. That's the guy. Yep. That is the guy. He can play the point. Yep. He can play the two guard. I loved him at Indiana. I thought Cleveland was silly passing him up at the time for Anthony Bennett, and I proved to be right.
That was stupid.
Although Victor Oladipo's not the best player from that draft, that's obviously Giannis, but nobody thought Giannis would be that good. And Oladipo goes to Orlando, underachieves a little bit, then they deal with Oklahoma City, was a sixth man for them, was okay, and then he's dealt in the Paul George trade, and that, remember at the time, nobody liked that trade for Indiana. Everyone's like, oh, they got two role players in Sabonis and Oladipo. And now that trade's a major win for the Pacers with those two guys. And I think that they want to pay Sabonis, and they signed Malcolm Brogdon already. So why not? Like, I think Victor Oladipo is a realistic trade candidate. Bill Simmons keeps saying it on his podcast. And I believe Bill Simmons a lot when it comes to star players and what he's hearing, because he's sometimes right. He's gotten some of his predictions trades-wise correct over the last couple of seasons in terms of teams and whatnot. But obviously Anthony Davis with the Lakers is one of them that he got right recently. And he mentioned Oladipo possibly being traded on his podcast, and I thought that this was a chance of happening even after his injury before Simmons said something about Oladipo. And I'm like, that's the guy that I want the Knicks to get. Imagine a backcourt with him and R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson in the front court. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Exactly. I would trade one of the two first-round picks you have this year, whether it's the Knicks pick or the Clippers. I mean, if you want to be shrewd, I would trade the Clippers first-round pick that you got from the Marcus Morris trade alongside throwing any random player you want, and then you have Victor Oladipo paired with Mitchell Robinson, because like you said, he can play the point, he can play the two. He will make R.J. Barrett better. He will make Mitchell Robinson even that much better. And now in NBA, which guard play is so important in the NBA, Victor Oladipo with R.J. Barrett, boy, in the East, you could be a playoff team. I'm not saying contender because they're nowhere near the
absolutely, yeah. They'd be a playoff team with Oladipo if they pulled off an Oladipo thing for sure.
I can see a 6-seed match, and I think 6-seed with Oladipo and RJ. I think that's realistic.
Me too.
Is very realistic.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah, I love Victor Oladipo. That's the guy I want them to trade for the most. And then I'd put Chris Paul number 2 because of the reasons you're for it, because of the SGA thing and helping turn the Thunder around. And he looks like he has a couple more solid years left. So I wouldn't mind Chris Paul. I don't think it will be a disaster like Derrick Rose was. A lot of people are against it because people think this is going to be Derrick Rose 2.0. But the difference is that Derrick Rose was injury prone and Chris Paul is been healthy a lot over the past couple of years. And is a leader and is somebody that makes teams better, as we saw with Oklahoma City this past season, despite the trading of Russell Westbrook and Paul George. They surprised everybody, and now they're going to be in the postseason once the NBA begins. So I put him number 2, but Victor Oladipo is absolutely my favorite in terms of a possible Knicks trade candidate. You'll see me go ballistically happy on Twitter if the Knicks traded for Victor Oladipo. And speaking of Victor Oladipo, he was on Fox's hit show The Masked Singer. Do you watch that?
I watch a little bit of it here and there, yes. I saw that episode, actually. That was impressive.
Yeah, so another sports player was unmasked on Wednesday night. I don't think you'll get it because it's somebody that retired a while ago and is now like involved with music and reality TV. You're not gonna get it.
No, I'm not gonna get it. Who?
Barry Zito, former Athletics Cy Young winner and San Francisco Giants World Series champion. It was a stunner to me. Stunner.
You know what's what's crazy is I've seen on Twitter him playing the guitar here and there, but I didn't put that. I would not get that. That is insane. And I saw a little bit of it. I saw I think Gronk was on there. Lil Wayne was on there at one point.
Gronk was on this season.
Yeah, Gronk was on the season.
Yeah, that was this season. Lil Wayne was this season as well. He got unmasked the Super Bowl episode, and it's funny because the first performer was the White Tiger, who was obviously Gronk, and now everyone's like, oh, it'd be only fitting if Gronk gets voted off tonight. It was just obvious that it was Gronk. And now, obviously, Gronk is on the Bucks. And it's funny because when Gronk got voted off, Nick Cannon asks him about possibly coming back, and he said, you never know, so maybe he knew something at the time.
Oh, my God. Oh, that was funny.
I know, that's hilarious. So, yeah, Barry Zito was the latest celebrity sports figure to get knocked off that show. And it's funny because Zito was on that Giants team. He wasn't even their best pitcher in those early championships. And their guys were like Matt Cain, and Bumgarner wasn't really in his prime yet, those first couple titles. The third title was peak of the Powers Bumgarner. Zito was on those first 2 title teams, and then obviously he was a Cy Young winner with Oakland. He was a good pitcher in his heyday, Barry Zito.
Oh, he was a really good pitcher. Like Zito was just phenomenal, and I think it was so underrated just how good he was. That curveball was just so deadly. He was really, really good. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm shocked, especially him going into the music. I mean, I seen him play the guitar, which is really good. But yeah, that really did surprise me.
Yeah, and it's funny because I thought we'd be talking about the Masked Singer and talking about Tim Tebow being in the costume that Barry Zito was in, which was a rhino costume. And I thought it was Tim Tebow this whole time because there was a lot of hints about faith and religion. And that made me think Tim Tebow. And there's quarters, so quarterback. So I was like, oh, it's Tim Tebow. And my mom thought it was Tim Tebow. And my family thought it was Tim Tebow. But it winds up being a baseball player, former baseball player, pitcher, Barry Zito. And speaking of reality TV, the Watt brothers, TJ... JJ and Derek are doing a game show, a tag game show. Have you heard of this?
I have not heard about this. This is news to me. They are?
Yeah, after the Masked Singer finale on Wednesday night, so it should be fun. So it's cool to see JJ Watt and his brothers in this show. And it's funny because people think that TJ Watt is a better player than JJ Watt. Now, I disagree. Because JJ, when healthy, is still one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Listen, TJ's getting close, but he's not JJ yet.
I think JJ Watt, when healthy, is still able to put double-digit sacks a year. I love TJ. I think TJ is going to be sensational, but it's when healthy, it's not even close. I still think JJ Watt is still one of the best rushers in the league. Like, he may not be as great as he once was because age, injuries, attrition, but I'm still going JJ. If you put me at healthy, I still would take JJ over TJ. Jay's close. He's still not there with us.
I agree with you. I think that it's close, but not there yet. Have you watched any of the KBO yet?
I have not.
Yeah, I only watched one game, and it was one at like 1 a.m., and I watched 3 innings of it, and I went to bed because I was tired. Because most of the games are on at 5 a.m. when I'm sleeping, and obviously when it's 1 a.m. here, it's 2 p.m. in Korea, and when it's 5 a.m. here, it is 6 p.m. in Korea. So, yeah, I haven't really watched it, but I've been on it a couple times, and I've been successful a few times in following trends and whatnot.
I think the thing that I watched with UFC this past weekend, as we alluded to in part one, especially with how Justin Gallippi upset Ferguson, that was a bit of a surprise to me because as as I was speaking to the lovely Antonita Collins, she was surprised, and I was surprised because if I was a betting man, which I can occasionally, but I was putting some money on Ferguson, but that for me kind of seems like wants that smoke. So we're going to see what's happening there, and obviously UFC returns this weekend, so I've been watching that as well. Like any new semblance of normalcy of sports, I've been watching. My favorite show, The Flash, for all you nerds, just like I am. A crushing announcement that all production to renew the slot for the shows have been put off until October, with the shows to be aired in January. So due to this pandemic, so if you're a fan like me, you're a little bit disappointed, but it is what it is, and yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to Andrew Thomas. He surprised a 17-year-old heart transplant survivor, and I think it shows what a good character he is, unlike DeAndre Baker.
Yeah, that's very true. So good on our first round pick, Andrew Thomas. A couple more to go. If the NBA returns, let's assume it does, the team under the most pressure to win it all or at least go far, such as like the conference finals or the NBA finals?
The answer is pretty obvious. It's the Lakers.
Yep.
I mean, I know conventional wisdom will probably say Bucks because they're honest, but the East is Giannis. Giannis will have another crack at it. If it's not this year, then definitely next year. He'll have a crack at it. Now, if KD and Kyrie are healthy, then then we'll have a different discussion. But the Lakers are under the immense pressure. Even coming into the season with the addition of AD, they were on LeBron trying to win a championship because you know how it is in LA. When you're a great player, they expect championships. And now with the ultimate tragedy of what happened with Kobe Bryant, and with how LeBron's legacy is there, like the Lakers have to win. Yeah. And if they do not win, I don't think the Lakers. This is the Lakers' golden opportunity. They're the number one seed in the Western Conference. They have, even though the Clippers are coming, I still think the Clippers are a better team, but the Lakers still have the better play. But then this team has to get, not even the conference finals. If they don't reach the NBA finals, I don't think LeBron wins a championship in LA. It's as simple as that.
That's pretty strong. I agree with you. It's the Lakers. It's not even close. You went through all the reasons. Kobe's death, unfortunately, has to be mentioned because the Laker fans know that this is for him. Like the Lakers would dedicate any championship run for him. You know that. So in Kobe's honor, the Lakers are under pressure to do some damage in the playoffs. Same question now for the NHL. If it returns, the team under the most pressure to win or to go far?
There are actually two teams. There are actually three I'm monitoring. the first team is the Capitals, especially how they're having another solid season, how they got bounced out last year by the Hurricanes in 7 games. That to me puts them under pressure to go far. Another team, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Another team, very skilled, very good, even though they started out slow, they're still a very good team. And the fact that they didn't just lose in 7 games. They got swept by Columbus last year, blowing a 3-goal lead. This team under John Cooper, since reaching the Eastern Conference, the Stanley Cup Finals in 2015, this team has failed to live up to the expectation. They lost to Pittsburgh in 2016.
Missed the playoffs.
They haven't even in the playoffs, and they haven't been the same since they got swept. So Tampa's another team under pressure. And the last team, this is all Eastern Conference teams because I don't think there's a team out west that's under another pressure. I know this is going to be a low-key pick. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins. And for this reason only, you got to look at Sidney Crosby and getting Malkin. These guys are getting older. These guys are not as same as they once were. They're still very, very good, but they're not the same anymore. These guys need at least another cup in them before it's time to hit the reset button because the Rangers are coming. The Islanders are still a good team. But the Flyers are good. You got teams in your own division. Carolina is still good.
Columbus
is still good. There are 5 teams that I just mentioned that are very, very good. And I didn't even mention Washington because they're a team that's also going to be on the rebuilding climb at some point. So I list you 5 teams on the come up that you need to have another cup run in you because you're going to hit the reset button. You're not going to keep Crosby and Malkin forever. Murray is I'm not feeling Murray, but that is a team, Pittsburgh, another team that's under the most pressure because they also got last year courtesy of my New York Islanders.
Yes. I think those are easily the 3 teams under the most pressure, but to me it's an easy number 1. Tampa Bay Lightning. They were the President's Trophy winners last year, got swept by Columbus. 2018, they lost in the postseason to Washington in the conference finals. 2017, missed the postseason. 2016, lost in 7 to the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then, obviously, 2015, they made the finals. Expectations for this team have been high over the last 5 to 6 years. And they still haven't done it. They came close in 2015, but the Blackhawks were in their way. And then they've underachieved ever since. I mean, it's been cup or bust or finals or bust for them the last couple of years, and they've failed, especially last year in getting swept by Columbus. That was a disaster for them. And John Cooper, I think that's a coach on the hot seat, too. I think there's a chance he gets fired if they don't at least go to the Stanley Cup final. And it's weird because I know your team benefited from this, but the Capitals should have never gotten rid of Barry Trotz. They fired him after winning the Cup. That was ridiculous.
That was my game. I'm not complaining. Last quick point I mentioned with the Cooper situation, some of my sources have been, because I follow the NHL, if Tampa Bay does not win a Cup, whether it's this year or next year, Cooper is going to get fired, and players like Hedman and Stamkos could be on the trading block.
That would not stun me. That would not stun me.
I've got that. That's the word I've gotten, and honestly, I'm not surprised because. And the last thing I'll make it, Stamkos to me is disappointing, and I say disappointing because he, as a great player, Steven Stamkos is, and I think he's a terrific player. He too has underachieved. How do you have a guy with? You have Vasilevsky, who is one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. You have Hedman, and you have Platt and all the other great players around you, and you have not once put yourself in a Hart Trophy conversation with all these great players around you. And no credit to your fault, he's been injured, but you have not produced. So yes, those are the 3 teams. Tampa Bay is number 1. The reason I listed those 3 teams too because those are the 3 teams that, when those teams go on the decline, the 5 teams I listed are going to be on the come up.
Absolutely. And then you missed a couple Atlantic Division teams that are on the up, like Buffalo and Boston's a contender right now, but they'll still be good. So don't forget about the
Boston,
Sabres and the Bruins too.
I don't. I'm not worried about the Bruins. The Bruins are a well-run organization. They'll keep it moving. The Sabres. My problem with the Sabres is they have been inconsistent. They have not. They have all the pieces, but they have some friction in the front office with Jack Eichel. As good as Jack Eichel is, and they got good pieces. Wayne Simmons trade was not bad. They got a Poso. They got good young players too. The fact of the matter is, Buffalo just doesn't seem to put it together. I don't know why, but Buffalo is another team that once they get it together, they're going to come up. The East is going to be a war in the NHL. I can see the East winning a lot of cups in this for a while because all of the teams, including Boston and Buffalo, Toronto, even though Toronto's defense is shaky, but their offense is so electric, and the 5 teams in the Metro. The East is going to be a war zone. Now, I don't mention any team out West because the West is up for grabs, but the East is going to be a war zone.
Absolutely.
You'll see a lot of teams winning championships in the East in the next 10 years. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. I did forget to mention the Maple Leafs. They're going to be around for a little bit. They still got Austin Matthews and John Tavares on that team. And in the West, like you said, is a crapshoot for sure. And sorry, I had to mention John's name because he's a member of the Leafs. And they're a good team. Well, at least your team's on the come, so your team probably doesn't need John Tavares.
We don't need him, but it would be nice to have him.
Yeah, I should have put it that way. But yeah, the Western Conference in hockey, I think it's up for grabs. There's a lot of teams in the West that are like Pittsburgh and Washington that are on the decline, like Nashville and the Sharks. And a couple of those teams out in the West that are on the decline. And then a couple former champions like the Blackhawks and the Kings are rebuilding. They're going to be a while. You got the Blues who won the Cup last year. They'll still be good. Vegas is awesome. The Flames have some talent. The Oilers have a lot of talent. So, yeah, the West is pretty loaded, but not as loaded as the East in terms of up and coming. Because, like I said, the West has some declining teams too, but they have some stable contenders out there as well. And if Major League Baseball returns, the team under the most pressure to go far or absolutely win?
The obvious answer, our beloved New York Yankees. It's as simple as that. You got Garrett Cole. The team that stopped you was the Houston Astros. Now you took away arguably their best pitcher. So obviously you took them away. Obviously, you have no excuses now. You got, even though Judge, yes, he is a question mark. You still have the offensive firepower. The bullpen is still solid. The rotation minus Severino is still pretty good. You have absolutely no excuses why you cannot win a championship. It is clearly the New York Yankees. The only team that's even remotely close is the LA Dodgers, but the Yankees clearly under the most pressure.
I think the Dodgers are under more pressure than the Yankees this season because they went out and traded for one of the best 10 players in all of baseball in Mookie Betts, and if they don't win and he leaves them as a free agent, boy, that's very reminiscent of the LA Lakers in that same city with Dwight Howard a couple of years ago, and that could very well happen with Anthony Davis too. That's not an absolute lock that they're going to re-sign him. I think that the Lakers will re-sign Anthony Davis, and I do think the Dodgers will re-sign Mookie Betts, but it's not a guarantee, just like people thought that Dwight Howard staying with the Lakers in 2012-13 was a guarantee. He left and signed with Houston in July of 2013. I'll never forget where I was when I found out that Dwight Howard signed with the Rockets. And I think the Dodgers are under immense pressure. Clayton Kershaw, I think, finally needs to come through in a big spot. Yes, the cheating Astros hurt his reputation a little bit. If not for the cheating Astros, they probably win. But my pick for this is the Los Angeles Dodgers, and a lot of it's because of Mookie Betts. I still think the Yankees are under pressure. Obviously the most in the American League, but I still think that their window is pretty more wide open. Although the Dodgers' window's wide open too, but they just went out and acquired a superstar player in Major League Baseball, and I think they're under more pressure than the New York Yankees this season to win the championship. And before we go, do you have any fun podcast guests coming on Sports Dudes within the next couple of days?
Well, we got right now. No one as of noteworthy, but we're working on some people. I just interviewed Jessica Slade, does digital media for the Connecticut Sun, so I interviewed her. We're supposed to have Reese Weatherspoon. She does sideline reporting for the Atlanta Dream, so we're gonna have her. So we're working the scenes, and we're gonna try to get more guests. Obviously, we just had the great Alan Hahn last night. You can check that out on the Sports Dude site. Check that out. Obviously, we had on Anthony a while back. Check that out. So we're constantly working. We're probably going to try to have on Bart Scott on pretty soon. So we're trying to work that out. So Bart, you can guys catch Bart and Alan Hahn on the Bart and Alan Show on weekdays from 1 to 3. So we're working on that, and that's pretty much it. We're working the scenes. We can't stop, won't stop. And Madison, as always, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. You have been not only tremendous at what you do, you're someone I consider a really good friend. And thank you again. And always, I'm glad to be on your show. And you're always more than welcome to come on mine.
Yes, you're one of my better guests on this show that are always willing to come on. And, of course, I know I'm always welcome on your show, too. And I look forward to coming on your show sometime soon. And I hope you have a great night.
You too. Take care.